That first Easter morning, while the world mostly slept, the sky lightened and a woman in tears made her way to the place where the one she loved over all others lay dead. He had been hastily buried, and so the rituals of death and her grief, which for her were the only way left for her to show gratitude, had not been completed. She set out that morning with single-minded purpose to do for the Lord what had not been done. It was, as we say in the prayer book, her bounden duty and service. We all know the story. We're going to celebrate it in hymn and song and high thanksgiving in just a couple of days. Mary Magdalene made her way to the garden to do her duty and was greeted by a sight which left her confused. The stone had been rolled away. Her mind raced. What fresh indignities had been heaped on the beloved one? In a panic, she ran to get Peter and John. They looked and saw, and they went home. Mary stood by weeping. His body was gone, and she could not do for her beloved one the simple and final acts of care to see him anointed and left finally at rest. You and I already know the joyful outcome. Jesus is risen from the dead and has conquered death forever. But Mary Magdalene could not see it. She had a job to do. Even when Jesus stood in front of her, she could not recognize him. Mary even interrogated him as to where the body was so that she could recover it. She could not see Jesus. Something about the resurrected life was different enough to make her blind, or her focus on the horror of the last days was so acute that she could not see that the one who had said, "I am the resurrection," was standing right in front of her. Jesus had to break the blindness which had overcome her with a word. "Mary," is all he needed to say, and she could see who it was that was standing before her. The transformed and resurrected life that Jesus offers us is just as opaque to us as it was to Mary Magdalene. Jesus wants to transform our lives and even our very bodies to be like his. The death will have no more dominion, and like Mary Magdalene in the garden so long ago, we are in danger of not seeing who is offering it to us. It is deep in the human experience to resist change. The more comfortable we are, the more we resist any change. Even when it comes to the spiritual truth of ourselves, we can resist what Jesus wants for us in order to keep what we know. Transformed and resurrected life, a life that is so different that you may not recognize it, is a change that is just too frightening. It sounds like this: "Thanks, Jesus, that's okay. Just give me back what I had. I don't know what this new life would be like, so if you don't mind, just give me back what I had, and that'll be great. No need for full-blown resurrection. How about just a little resuscitation instead?" But the power of God in Christ is not content with giving you back what you had. Jesus died and rose again so that you may be transformed in this life and the next. And that means what you had isn't good enough anymore. In fact, your wildest dreams of what God has in store for you are not nearly wild enough. Easter means there is laid up for you in heaven a future that is beyond your comprehension. Even in that moment in the garden, Jesus had to remind Mary not to cling to him. We don't get to keep Jesus the way we want him to be. We have to live into the life which has been forged for us. And that life will not make much sense if you cling to what you have known. Jesus, who knew exile, calls us to live a new life for the homeless, the refugee, the hungry, the lost, and the unloved. It is a life you won't necessarily recognize, but it is the new and deathless life that you are called to live now. The reason why is simple. We are a people of the hope of that new life. that on the other side of the grave is a life that has been given to us through no merit of our own, but purely through the love of the one who formed us from the dust. Because on the other side of the grave we see a kingdom of justice and mercy, we serve those who have been ignored or made invisible by the powers of this world. Because on the other side of the grave we see there is a feast in the kingdom, we feed those who are hungry now. Because on the other side of the grave we see communion, connection, and love, we serve the addicted, the despairing, and the forgotten. Because on the other side of the grave we see an assurance and confidence in God's great love for us, we reach out to the anxious and the fearful. Because on the other side of the grave we see restoration of health and vigor, memory and joy, we serve the sick, the suffering, and those who have no one to attend them, because we are the people who have hope. Beyond whatever terror the world might supply, beyond whatever brokenness keeps us from reaching out, we are the people who have a hope beyond whatever it is that has kept us from being loved and loving fully. Like Mary Magdalene, our focus on the horror of these last days may blind us from seeing that Jesus, the resurrection and the life, stands before us, inviting us into the hope of the eternal kingdom. We can begin that new, transformed, and deathless life here and now. We don't have to wait. In fact, like Mary Magdalene, we can't cling to what we've known. We must, like Mary, go and tell all those who need to hear that the Lord is risen, and with him, our lives, our hopes, and our hearts are risen to this new and deathless life. Happy Easter.